Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. I am thrilled today to have the incredible Julie Murphy here with me. I'm gonna see if I can get
Woo!
woohoo! I'm gonna see if I can get through all of her titles. She's the author of the Four Spiritual Laws of Money. She's also the author of Awaken Your Wealth, Creating a Pact to Optimize Your Money and Your Life. She's the founder and CEO of JMC Wealth Management. And then she's also the host of Wake Up to Your Wealth podcast. Did I
Yeah.
cover everything?
Well, the only thing you missed is Mama Four.
There you go. She's got a full plate, ladies and gentlemen. But Julie, I'm so thankful that we're doing this today and for you
Thank
to
you.
tell me. And so I'm going to turn it over to you. Let you introduce yourself a little further and get to know you a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah. I can't believe I'm in my 29th year of being a financial planner. I was young and dumb. I have 11 brothers and sisters. And so when I got out of college, I was like, you mean I can run my own company? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to run my own company. And I found some really great mentors early on. And now we manage about a half a billion under management as a wealth management firm here in Chicago. And I just decided in writing my books and doing my workbooks, and I actually now have a 6-week online course. It's because I've learned so many things being a financial planner and helping people one-on-one. And financials are the thing that really jam people up in not living the life that they really truly want to live. And so that's my motivation to take what I've learned helping people one-on-one all these years to say, hey, money should not be the focus of your life, but money makes the world go round. And
Sure.
how is it that we can get people to this place of freedom and get these financial shackles off of our legs so
Yeah.
we can really feel more nimble and love life a lot more and live in this place of freedom? And I think because I have 11 brothers and sisters, I never wore the shackles because we didn't have anything growing up. And
Yeah.
so that anything that I created from that place of a 3-bedroom house with 14 people living in it, um, I just built it up from there. And, I always set the intention that I wanted to have it all. I wanted the kids, the career, the, happy relationship, everything. And life has continued to unfold like that. And so I believe that we can create whatever it is that we want in our lives. And the more I share what it is that I do in my story and how I've done it, then the more people think that it's a possibility for themselves.
I love what you said too. Like money shouldn't be the thing that takes over everybody's lives, but on the hand of how do you make everybody feel so comfortable? One with the talk about money. Money such is such a thing of like taboo.
Sticky, very sticky.
It's yucky.
Well, it's about the fact that you have to accept the reality of what you've created so far.
Okay.
Because in that acceptance, what you do is you create emotional space to allow the new to come in. But if you keep talking about or ignoring the current reality that you've actually created for yourself financially, or, people say, like, well, but it was where I was born, or it's my employer, or it's my spouse screwing me up. You know what? We have got to understand that we live in a holographic universe. And what do I mean by that? It means that whatever is going on in your inside is why the world outside of you is mirroring that to you. So if you're sitting in a financial situation that you actually really don't love, it's because we have to shift something in your inside. And it has 100% to do with your subconscious mind, not your conscious mind. Consciously, from your frontal lobe, everybody wants to change things, right? Like, I wish it was different. I wish it could be different. But our subconscious mind, which is back here in our amygdala, that's the one running the engine 97% of the time. So every single human being on this planet has experienced some kind of trauma or rejection before age 7 that hardwires into our brains. And then now that is your response system, or I will say your reactive system to everything that occurs in your life. And until you start to see, you live long enough, you start to see patterns. And you're like, oh, this is a friend, different name, different time in my life, but it's the same bullshit. Pardon
Yep.
my French.
Yep.
And it's
No.
because your subconscious mind is running the show. This is where it all falls into place.
Yep.
So the conversation starts with just accept your reality, because we can't really give any more energy than that to it. Because if you do, then all you're going to do is keep recreating the same thing.
Totally.
So the first step I actually have people do, and how I start the conversation is, and it's the first step of the process that I've walked people through for years, is you have to picture the life you want to create, and your brain's going to try to edit it.
Yep.
Don't let that editing happen.
Yep.
I need you to stay in that brainstorming and picturing the life that it is that you want to create, because that's your compelling reason for change.
Okay.
Because if you don't think that something else is going to be better, why bother?
100%. And it's we like to sabotage ourselves quite a bit. We're very
Right?
good
That's
at it.
that subconscious mind.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we're very good at it. But it's I think too it's always been, I don't want to say it's a generational thing, but it's a generational thing in the sense that you grow up and you're like, you shouldn't ask people how much they make. You shouldn't ask people all these questions.
Right.
So it's carried forward
Right.
and we're like, okay, yep, this is what we've just carried.
So let's talk about that sabotage, right? I don't think anyone really wants to sabotage themselves, but we do sabotage ourselves. And the question is why?
Yeah.
So in the years that I've been doing this, what I've come to the conclusion of is that the reason we sabotage ourselves is because that trauma or rejection before we were 7 years old, we built up these energetic walls to protect our hearts. And that's what allowed us to survive as a child. And that leads to scarcity, financial scarcity, scarcity in love, scarcity in success. It leads to not being abundant, and it's your survival mode.
Yep.
And when you're in that survival mode, you sabotage. And so the way that you get out of this pattern of survival mode is that you have to start, you buried feelings that you have, because our emotions are energy in motion.
Yep.
And so we have to feel the feelings that are stuck in our physical bodies to get to the other side of the sabotage.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds esoteric to a lot of people. Are going, really? The solution to all my shit is actually I just have to feel my feelings, Julie? I'm like going, yeah, because that little boy or little girl inside of you is still terrified. And that's why you sabotage yourself, because the sabotage is a distraction
Yeah.
to feeling the feelings. You know, I had one client who revealed her stuff and figured it out. And it was one time that her grandmother disciplined her and spanked her, right? Like, it
Yep.
doesn't have to be severe. It could just be something that hardwired into you that you were afraid. You sucked it up. You didn't feel the feelings. And it's about opening you back up, opening your heart back up.
Yeah.
And this is why we all work so hard for our money, because every single person that I've worked with, they feel like, oh, if I have just a couple $1,000,000 and I have all the money and I can tell my employer to go jump in the lake,
Yep.
like I'm going to go live my life, everything's going to be great.
Yep.
And I will tell you, I have clients have those multi-millions. They're not any happier.
No.
And here's why. Because they never aligned their heart and their soul with how they're living their life. They're selling their soul to actually work hard,
Yep.
produce for a family, like all these reasons outside of themselves,
Yep.
but nothing that creates sustainable happiness inside.
Yep.
So that's what I call in my most recent book, The Four Spiritual Laws of Money. I call it real wealth. It's about really living from this place where you're happy. Yeah, you may have millions, you may not have millions. I don't care where it is that you're at right now,
Yeah.
but this is about aligning with your heart and your soul. And that's what actually generates more money, more love, and more of everything else in your life, because you're in alignment with self.
I love it. And I want to, while you just hit on your most recent book, The Four Spiritual Laws of Money, I want to hit on this because I think it's such an interesting take because a lot of people, like we've been talking about, I don't think align spiritual with wealth and money. Because
Yeah, they don't.
it seems like two different worlds.
It's
So
like, what?
yeah, like where does this connect? But I want to just dig into this and what, I mean, both your books have garnered significant success. You've been on lists,
Mhm.
but what motivated you after your first book to then go and write this one? And what are the key insights or principles that you're hoping readers are going to take away with this?
Right. So my first book was The Emotion Behind Money. And it was interesting when you do things that are in alignment with your soul, including myself, everything opens up. Literally, I finished writing my book, The Emotion Behind Money. I gave birth to my first child. And then I got a phone call from CNBC going, "Hey, we found your book and we're wondering if you want to come on this show." So for the next 11 months, I found myself flying to New York a couple times a month, being on this regular show called On the Money.
Yeah,
And it was when the stock market was crashing in '08 and '09 and the numbers didn't work. People are like having all this emotion behind money, right? And I would argue it's not just when the stock market's down that people have emotion behind money. I think people have emotion behind money every day.
yeah,
And that's when you know you're in alignment with self. So after I wrote that book, and I had a couple more babies after that, I was like, oh, people need to know this process that I walk people through. And that's what led me to the second book was like taking the process, the actual Awaken Your Wealth was written to show people what is the process, the exact process I walk clients through, which I now have the online course that also walks people through, and they get me live twice a week during that course. Because we don't know how much we're jammed up and how to untangle the jam, right? And then the four spiritual laws of money that I wrote most recently, I'm going, this isn't about alignment with self. See,
yeah.
we talk about things like the midlife crisis for people that, oh, well, the midlife crisis, all it is we as human beings call crises or situations into our lives
Midlife.
on an energetic perspective to get them back in alignment with their soul because they've gone so far off the path. Like we have free choice and free will.
Yeah,
But when that free choice and free will is not in alignment with why you incarnated on this planet in the first place, guess what? You're going to get bitch slapped across the face by the universe and you're going to be right shipped.
yep,
And the crisis is going to come. It can come in a health crisis, a divorce crisis. It can come in any other kind of relationship crisis, an employer crisis. Like I had a really good friend that I talk about in my last book that, she gave her life to this accounting firm,
yeah.
like waiting to be partner, waiting to be partner. And the day she thought she was becoming partner, she walked into the office and they said, unless you have a severe shift in your personality, you will never be partner at this firm. So we decided to lay you off. And she knew for years that her personality and who she is did not align with the value system of this firm. She's still an accountant today, but now she's actually in alignment with a company that values the same thing that she values.
Yeah,
And so you're put in alignment, whether it's by choice or by force,
yeah,
right? And this is how it happens. So that's what motivated me on this last book to write it because I kept watching all these people have these spiritual crises, midlife crises. Like we can shift this stuff way before you get to your 50s. And if you've already had it, great. Let's surrender more into your authenticity, be more of it, who it is that you are, and
yeah.
let's get busy living a life that makes you giggle every day.
Absolutely. My dad preaches all the time to my sister and I. He's like, life is a marathon, not a sprint. He's like, if you sprint too fast, he's like, you're gonna be done. And so
Yeah,
he has pounded that into our heads in the sense of enjoy life along the way. Don't
right,
feel like you have to just go 24/7. He's like,
right,
because you're going to miss everything. And I think to your point, you're not going to be aligned with what you really want in your life and the things that you
right.
truly care about and what matters.
Exactly. And you know what? It's about being as opposed to doing all the time. So when you think of life as a marathon and not a sprint, that gives you the emotional capacity then to maybe respond to the things that are happening as opposed to emotionally reacting to the things that arise in life. Like if we don't accept 100% of everything that arises in life, we suffer. Whether somebody's showing up in integrity or not showing up in integrity, or we don't like these politicians. I mean, look at how many things people are reacting to today.
Yeah.
It's obnoxious. And if you are reacting and you are triggered, that's about something has to shift inside of you. It has nothing to do with anybody else. And that's a hard pill for many people to swallow.
It's a very hard pill, especially when we're constantly looking around and trying to
Yep.
point fingers at everybody else. And when if we
Right?
point a finger at somebody else, there's three pointing back at you. But it's
That's so
constantly that
true.
it's so true. And
Right.
it's we oftentimes need to look at ourselves and say, holy shit, maybe I'm the problem in this situation. I need to figure things out. But like you said, that's a very hard pill for a lot of people to swallow because we don't want to be wrong and we don't want to have to evaluate ourselves further.
Exactly. I even use this with my kids. I'm like, they're screaming at me, yelling, hormones are kicking in my house with the teenagers. And I'm like, you're triggered. So what needs to shift in you? You're a terrible mom.
Yeah.
I'm like
Yeah.
going, yeah, no, I'm not. But thank you for the practice in my not enough button. Like I'm not worthy enough to be a good mom. I've had enough practice at that. I don't need any more practice at that. I get it. It's okay, but something needs to shift in you because you're triggered. I'm not triggered.
Yep.
So you need to shift. This is not about me.
I want to get into your mind and sitting in your seat as a certified financial planner. Just, I love to get into misconceptions of people's worlds because I find it so fascinating. Sitting in your seat, what are some common misconceptions or challenges you've had with clients, with just people other in the financial world when it comes to helping individuals achieve their financial health?
Think the biggest one is the fact that you think that you can't do anything. So, for example, I have a lot of people that come to me, and like a friend of mine from college, he's been a client of mine for 26 years. And he's like, Jewel, we need to talk. I'm like, okay. So, him and his wife get on the call with me. We're on Zoom. He goes, we want to move to North Carolina. I said, okay. He goes, what do you mean, okay? And I go, you've been a very good financial student for 25 years. There is no reason in the world why you can't move your family to North Carolina. And he goes, I knew you were going to say that. See, we can go. And she's like, the wife was like, well, there's a few more logistics to figure out. But it was like everybody that they surrounded themselves with were
Yeah.
telling them, like the grandparents were like, you really want to take the grandkids away from the grandparents? And what about your jobs? And North Carolina doesn't pay as much as Chicago and blah, 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 blah. And it was like, you guys are not happy here. And here's what I've learned: when you don't align with yourself,
Yep.
disease starts to develop in your body.
Yep.
And it may not even be for 15 years that that disease actually shows up. But I went back to when I was saying that the most important step is picturing the life you want to create. I go, well, okay, let's stop talking about what everybody else is saying. Tell me what it is that really excites you guys and what you want to do. And they talked about was like, they want to be somewhere where there's more outdoors. They thought they were going to get in the suburbs in Chicago.
Yeah.
And it was like they were just farther from the life that they wanted to create. And it didn't give them any hiking choices or
Yeah.
so we started brainstorming what that was. And I said, okay, I need you guys to go find that house that embodies all these things that you just listed out for me, that you're still walking distance to a school, you're not so remote, that your kids are like driving 40 minutes on a bus to a school, and they found it. And they are so happy today. So I think the biggest challenge is that people don't think that anything is possible. So you have to understand we put our own limitations on ourselves. In my 6-week course that I teach people, the second week is about, it's called Impact. And the M week is about busting the myths and the limiting beliefs that we all live by.
Yeah.
And you don't realize how your upbringing with your parents and your family structure and the communities we grew up in, how many beliefs that we have
Oh God.
that cap you.
Yeah.
and tell you you can't do things.
Yep.
And you don't, and it was all done with good intent to try to protect you and this, that, and that. No harm, no foul, but
Yeah.
it's about the fact that there are these limiting beliefs that we don't, there are no limits
Yeah.
whatsoever. That's the biggest challenge is what stories are we telling ourselves in that limiting belief system in our brains? Because we have got to start living from our heart has to align, then add your smarts, as one of my mentors, Deirdre Morgan, says.
Yep.
Because your mind, your monkey mind, if you only do things that are the smart financial things to do, you are going to be sad one day.
It's so true. It's so true. And I feel like even we carry a lot of that, and I'm even working through a lot of the stuff that my parents had said to me as I was a kid and growing up and going to school, and I'm like sitting here, I'm like, hold on, I don't have to listen to you. But it's a lot of the time it is shaking a monkey off your back and saying, get away from me. That's
Yep.
not how I want to go live my life. That's
Yep.
not how I want to
Exactly.
operate.
Yep. Exactly. And you just have to, that's why the second to last step of the process is you have to just choose to change. You have to choose and commit to shifting it, going, okay, now I'm starting to actually see and observe my limiting beliefs. Now, what do I want to do about it? And make that choice going, okay, I'm not really sure how I'm going to do this, but yeah, I'm going to do it.
Yep.
Like, I'm really going to step into this and I'm going to start to explore territory I've never been in before.
Yep.
And people always say to me, like, what the hell does any of this have to do with money? I'm like, haha, what it has to do with money is the fact that money is just the result of what you're choosing and committing to.
Yep.
The money shows up based on what you're putting your intentions and your actions towards. That's it. Because people wonder, well, why didn't I get the pay raise I wanted? Why didn't I get the bonus? Why don't I have this? Why don't I have that? I'm like, well, because you're not in alignment with yourself. You're negotiating yourself away on some form, some way, somehow. And people don't even see it because they're working hard and they're putting in the time and they're doing their best.
Yep. Because that's also how we've been trained for years is you go to work 8 hours every single day and you have
Yep.
to make money, keep the roof
Yep.
over your head, all these things.
Exactly. And
Yep.
it's like, yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah.
No, because you know what? What's interesting to me is the more I align with myself and the more I require all of my employees and everyone I work with to only do what it is that they love,
Yeah.
more money shows up. My
Yep.
business keeps growing. I am flabbergasted at how much my business is compounding these days. It's amazing.
I love it.
Right.
I
And
love,
I'm working less, it's not stressful.
yeah.
It's like
I love to
it's
hear.
getting easier. And it's like, can I pinch myself? Like, I mean, I'm full throttle. I have two teenagers now, a 9 and a 10-year-old. I just bought a new house, moving in with the guy that I've been with for 7 years post divorce. And we're going to have 6 kids in a big old house. And business is growing and compounding like I couldn't
You're
even
loving
imagine.
life. You're loving life.
Right. I'm aligning with myself. So am I. So are my kids.
Yeah.
That's why it's all working out.
Now, while we just got, I mean, mother of four, living in a house with 6 kids, moving, that whole introduction, you go and author 2 books. You're the founder and CEO of this company. I want to get into this podcast that you're also the host of, and just want you to get me to walk me through what is Wake Up to Your Wealth. How is it a combination of everything you do? Is it focused on one thing? What is this podcast about, and what are you focusing on in this venue?
Yeah. So what it's about is the fact that, I always say that we work things out and we act it out and we do it through our money, our health, and our relationships.
Okay.
Right. So, and I will move amongst the different areas of our lives. And sometimes I'll bring people on that are experts in those other areas because I learned this from years ago that I had a client come in and she was like, I have $30,000 of credit card debt. I know I'm far behind in my own retirement planning. She was in her early 40s at the time.
Okay.
And she's like, I just need you to right the ship here and just tell me what I got to do. And And then she decided that was when I started to shift. So you have to pay attention to things as they unfold, right? At the time, I would just charge an annual fee of like $3,000 for somebody to meet with me. And and then I realized going, oh, there are so many people who are working hard to make good incomes, but they don't necessarily have the extra $3,000 sitting around, but they need somebody to talk to, right? And she's like, "Can I just pay you for like the hour that I take of your time?" And I was like, "Hmm." So it started a whole new process to my business where we now charge consulting fees for an hourly rate. And she came in for a financial checkup and she now does it every January. And then the next year she came in and she lost a bunch of weight.
Love it.
I'm sorry. No, her credit card debt went way down, but she gained a bunch of weight. It
Okay.
was the year after that, her weight went back down, but her credit card debt went back up. I was like, oh, it's acting out between her health and her wealth. And I was like, why is she not happy?
Yeah.
And so what I realized is she was really sad that she was now hitting her mid 40s without any babies. And she had divorced an alcoholic and she never found that other person. And so like her story is like the premise of my podcast is like going, "Hey, I want you to see where your leaky container is.
Right.
Is your leaky container in your money right now and does it leak over into your relationships or does it leak over into your health?"
Yep.
And it could be all three. Could be two out of the three. And this was kind of the basis of starting to educate people and when it's acting out in your money,
Yeah.
how do we stop some of those leaky containers? How do you build a system for your money so that you stop having leaky systems? Like it could be the fact that you can't stop, you pay off your credit card debt and it jacks back up again. It could be that you keep getting in relationships and you're such a big giver that you keep giving your money away to family or or you don't love yourself enough to hold boundaries with your boss to get the pay raises you deserve. Like we create these ways that we act out, and it's all about what's going on inside of us emotionally.
Yes. But I love from everything that you just said to me though is you're meeting people where they are. And I think that's so important because
Yes,
whether or not somebody needs you for an hour, somebody needs you once a month, whatever it may be, but you've allowed people to get your insights and your knowledge
totally.
in a plentiful of different venues, which I think is incredible. And
Yep,
it brings people back into you.
right. That's exactly it. Because you can only grow from where you're planted today. That's it. So why do we have to wait till we get? I remember my grandmother used to say to me, "Grandma, let's go get a manicure pedicure." And she was like, "Oh no, my nails are too messy to have somebody give me a manicure." And I was like, "What? What? My nails are too messy to have somebody actually clean my nails up." It's because she didn't want somebody to see how bad it was. People are like that with their money. I don't want you to see my financial dirt
Yep.
because it's kind of messy.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what? I want to see exactly where you're at. And remember, we started this conversation on the fact that the most important thing was to accept
Yeah.
where you're at.
Yeah.
Because if we don't shine the light on the reality, it's always going to be lurking there in the darkness and it's going to play havoc with you. It always will. So I don't care how much a person's money, how much they have, how much they don't have. It's about getting a system in place, understanding your patterns, getting a system in place to position you to be lucky, to let your freak flag fly, allow yourself to be yourself, and love life every day and be financially abundant in the process.
And I love going back to what you were saying about your own self and your own business. You're working less hours. You're so aligned with your work and what you're doing. And I think it likes to be preached the you want to work shorter hours and make, live life to this fullest thing. But it's always something that nobody who says it is actually like goes and does it. They end
Right.
up working the 12 hours every single day and end up not having any of that of what any time at all for themselves to go and actually live their life.
I tell people it's kind of like, because I notice this pattern when people have enough money to go tell their employers to go fuck themselves, Pardon my French. Sorry.
I
But
love
if you
it.
have enough money and you don't need that paycheck, you make very different decisions in how you interface with your coworkers, your
Yeah.
boss, everybody else. And I need you to act. It's kind of like a pregnant woman. You like when you're pregnant, you can't, they think pregnant women are crazy. It's just that pregnant women just won't put up with anything because the only thing that woman's doing is growing a baby.
Yes.
And she has to X out all the BS in her life.
Yes.
And I say that's the same thing with when it comes to our employment. I had a client the other day that I said to them, she's like, I had to leave this job. I didn't believe in the leadership. I didn't like the way that, and they had moved their entire family to Texas. And I was like, okay. And I framed it for them. I said, you're just turning 50. You're great. And you know what? You've been good financial stewards for 20 years. Your worst case scenario is you sell your house today, buy a house with the equity you have in your house.
Yeah.
And based on their portfolio, I said, I can spit you out a paycheck that replaces one of your guys' jobs today.
Wow.
And it's all just about choosing what you want to spend. And then all of a sudden they were like, what? Like to think of that young to be able to quit a job and just go, oh, if we just shift the way we're living and then I don't have to actually go to an employer,
Yeah.
what? Like, and these are two people who didn't grow up with any money. They grew it, they put themselves through college, they paid for their own college, and they just were good stewards. And they kept every time they got a pay raise, they saved a little bit. You know, because I always talk about your money being in there's your financial past, and then there's your money in the present moment and your financial future. Because your past is all your debts. Like you wake up today to go to work to pay for all of your past choices. That's your debts.
Yep.
So that's what gives you a lack of freedom in your life,
Like it.
right? And the present moment is your cash flows. Getting your check deposited from your payroll. That's what you have to spend. And then you choose where it flows out to be,
Yep.
right? Not a budget. I hate the word budget. I
I
want you to decide how you want your cash to flow and choose it from a place of empowerment, right? And then your future is planting those seeds that gives you more choices down the road.
Yeah.
And so in that whole process, you know, I talk about that you don't necessarily have to change what you're doing today, but when you get new money, and that could be a tax return, it could be a pay raise, a bonus, an inheritance, it could be that your car payment went away. That's all new money.
Yeah.
And you want to use that new money to now fund the things that you want to create in your life. Right. But I always tell people split it up a little bit to your debt, a little bit to your spending today, and a little bit to your future. Because if you don't do that, you're going to hijack your nervous system. But so many people have that money spent before they ever even get it.
Amen. Well, and I want to ask this of you, and just because I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. In your perspective, after what you just said about budgets, do you find them to be overrated or underrated?
Overrated.
I feel the same way.
Here's the thing. How do you feel when somebody says the word budget to you?
Really grown up and responsible, and like I need to
Well, and
have
it puts
my
a
shit,
cap.
my ducks in a row, and like everything needs to be zipped up really tight.
And that means there's a lot of judgment behind it, a lot of shame, blame, guilt. It's a system that is set up to make you feel like crap because it says you can't do things because you have a budget. I have to follow my budget. That is the worst thing that you can ever do when it comes to your money, in my opinion. I'm not saying you don't plan how you want your cash to flow,
Yeah.
but I need you to choose it from a place of empowerment of going, I'm choosing for my money to flow out the door this way. So,
Okay.
like, for example, I just set up my new house the other day and I'm like going, okay, for me to set up the best internet and the best stations, cheap, streaming and all the other
Yeah.
crap that I need in my house, it's going to cost for the size house I got, plus all the people I'm going to have in this house, it's going to cost about $300 a month because I've got super fast Wi-Fi. It's never going to
Yeah.
go down. I have a backup to that because then I can work from home and I don't have to go into an office, so I don't have to commute. But I'm choosing for that bill to be that high because I'm choosing to not have to commute in my car to an office that's going to be an hour away.
Yep.
Right? Like, I am choosing that. I'm not victim to it. I'm choosing it.
Yeah.
Right? And when we come from a place of that we're choosing, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, that's not really working out. Well, what would I like to choose differently?
Right.
It's then you stay in your power.
Yeah.
You're not victim to a system that's trying to control you. You're out of the matrix.
I love it. Because I feel it all the time. I'm like, I have an appreciation for saying yes, mortgage is the going that's how much it is, and that's a nice reminder because it's probably that dollar amount's gonna lose it. But I'm like, if I'm sitting here and just calculating and like minusing a bunch of dollar values, I'm sitting here, I'm like, now I just feel really shitty about how my money is being used and how like the direction of my finances. I'm like, I feel pretty good when I pay my mortgage off and I pay this,
Right.
but it's then
Right.
where I'm like, oh fuck, I got all this other shit. I'm like, oh great. But it is a bit of that shame and blame that comes into it on the other flip side of it.
I would challenge you if we were sitting here doing your financials, I would challenge you and go, what's your why behind it? And that's one of the parts I have in my recent book. It's like, make a wise decision, and wise, WISE. The first one is, what's your why?
Okay.
Right? And
Yeah.
it could be, may I ask how old you are?
27.
And how many more years do you have on that 10-year mortgage?
8.
How old? So in 8 years, your why could be like, okay, in 8 years, before I'm 40, I want to have my mortgage paid off and have my freedom. But then you have a driving force behind your decisions,
Totally.
right? But so many people have no clue what that is. And if you knew your why, it may not be the same why today as it was 7, 8 years ago.
Totally. Well, and I feel like today too, that question of why everybody is asking the why question. So everybody's like, well, I have to have a why for this and a why for this. And I'm like, figuring out what the important why is in terms of finance, emotional, and physical health. I'm like, those three feel like the important ones to have whys for. Anything else is out the door.
Well, and here's the thing. You are nothing without good health.
Yeah.
Your health is the best investment you can make. When you create debt and you hold debt and you have to stress out in the present moment to pay off that debt, you are affecting your health. So you are affecting the best investment you can make. And people are like, are you my financial planner or are you my integrated medicine person? I'm like, I'm your financial planner. And I'm telling you, yes, those things would be nice to have, but is it worth the cost of the stress to get it?
100%.
Like, for an example, like I've known for years, my brother has worked in my company for years and 15 years. And he's like, Jewel, are we going to get to the point where you're going to turn me over some equity of the company, blah, blah. And I never could figure out exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
Well, with me buying this big house for 6 kids to live in, and I'm like going, how do I make this happen? I was going, hey, Mark, what if we did this? You know, we figured out this whole buy sell agreement in the company for him to have a portion of it, which we're going to organize it to where it's almost exactly the price of my house. So I'm going to have no mortgage payment come by the end of this year by the time we get everything settled. So I'm going to be able to provide a house for that many people
Yeah.
and only have my real estate taxes, homeowners insurance, and the utilities to pay.
Wow.
And that feels freaking fantastic. And everybody can have that. You just have to choose it. That same brother listened to me when he was young and dumb at 22 years old. He goes, so if you would do this over again, what would you do? And I said, I'd buy a 4-bedroom house and I'd rent 3 of the bedrooms out to my buddies that I went to college with. And then one day, this is the house that you and your wife can live in, and it's going to be paid off because I'm going to force you to get a 15-year mortgage. So by the time you're done being a crazy 20 or in your 20s,
Yes.
that this thing's going to be paid off by the time you're in your mid 30s at the latest. And that's exactly what he did. And it's just like, when you can think outside the box, but what 22-year-old is thinking of buying a 4-bedroom house?
Not a lot of people at all.
No, but their big sister, 10 years older, is like a financial planner. And it's like, if I were to do it over again, I have another brother who I go, oh my God, I would buy 6 flats and 3 flats in the Chicagoland area. And I'd live in one of the apartments, fix them all up, and then rent them all out and then buy the next one and then buy the next one. He's got 4 properties now and he's got 4 kids. He's like, all 4 properties are each kid's college fund. And he's got one of them that's already paid off. And it's like a $1.6 million building.
Wow.
And I'm like going, you go, boy.
Yeah.
Like, but you have to, we don't realize that the younger you start to do these things by choice to create financial freedom for yourself,
Yep.
by the time you're 40 years old, everyone else in their 40s is going to go, how in the hell are you doing all that? Well, I was smart in my 20s. Because it has nothing to do with what you're doing in your 40s. It has to do with what you did in your 20s and 30s. And all doing it from a place that makes you giggle and gives you lots of freedom and choices. Because in life, you got to pivot
Every day.
every day.
Every day. I'll just say this: younger siblings should listen to older siblings. I say it all the time. I'm like, I look at my sister. I'm like, you should listen to me more. I'm not bullshitting you here. I'm not
Well, it's
bullshitting.
like I tell my children, I say, you can either listen to your mother or life is going to teach you. Right? It's true. I have a life experience. You don't have that yet.
Yep.
It's all good. You know, everyone goes on their journey they're meant to go down.
Amen to that. Everybody has their path. That's what we're all here to learn from.
Yep,
Those.
totally.
Yep. Julie, I can't thank you enough for
Well,
taking.
thanks for being in my car office here, being a
I love
mom and
it.
running around today.
I love it. I love it. I can't thank you enough for taking the time and sitting here with me and walking me through everything that you're doing.
Beautiful.
If you have not read either one of Julie's books, listen to her podcast. Everything's going to be linked down below. You can fully go dive into everything that she's doing. But Julie, just thank you so much.
Ah,
Thank
you're
you. Thank
welcome.
you. I
Have
love
the
it.
best day ever.
Yes. And as always, I will see you guys back here next time. Bye, y'all.